Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm Gamesplaining Tekhenu. So if you have watched the first half of this Gamesplanation, you'll have an idea of how the game runs. This video is more about the minutiae of each thing, but it's really important to understand what you're doing before you play, just so you actually know what you're doing. I'm going to run through what each of the 6 areas of the board enable you to do. I'll start down here and move along, and then I'll jump up to the top half. So down here enables you to take goods and fill up this area of the board. What you're doing by doing this is the number directly tells you which line you're able to go on. The further down this you go, or the higher the number you use, the higher the value. But when you get to the scoring, if you've got an even number of colors on a line, whoever is the highest up that line will win. You'll also notice the gold sitting over here to start the game with. So if someone uses the 2, what they're doing is firstly reduce your happiness by 1 in order to actually do anything on this board. So this guy moves down 1. Then he will place this building on one of these 4 spots, and he might go for that. There's a picture of the granite, so he gets 1 granite, and he also pushes his granite up 1 in terms of his production. That then goes on to his pure side of the scales. Because he's used a 2, he gets that gold. That's only for the very first player to actually use a 2 anywhere on there. If he used the 5 instead of the 2, he would be choosing down this line, which would gain him 2 of any of the resources, and would push him up twice on that line if he chose to go there, so he'd get an extra resource for it. If he went on the bottom, he would move up 2, and he'd move up 1 on one of the other tracks, or that track again if he wished to. If he goes here, he would get a gold and a granite, and then move up 1 on both the black and the white. Here he's just gaining 1 resource, but moving up both those tracks. Gain 1 resource, move up 1. Gain 1 resource, move up 1. And that's the same for each of the lines. There's pictures of what you can gain through that. Okay, moving forward. I might actually jump across to this spot now. So here it's going to cost 2 papyrus to take a die. So let's pretend he had the 2 papyrus to spend. So there's 2 papyrus that he takes from his lot and spends to take, let's say, that die. If he takes that, what that's now going to do is push his happiness forward 5 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, he's only been able to move forward 4 because that's where his population is at. In order to get the 5, he would have had to have his population pushed forward from where it currently is. If he had taken a 4, he would move forward 4 rather than 5 things, and he would also gain 1 extra of these markers. If it was a 1 or 2, he'd gain 2 of those markers. Those markers are worthwhile because they can be used to add 1 or minus 1 from any die. So each time you use one of these markers, you could turn a 5 into a 6, for example, or a 4 into a 3, or a 5 into a 4. The other way you can use them is if you use 2 of those markers, you can take a die from anywhere on the board, including in the forbidden zones, to be able to action it. So, for example, he could spend these 2 to take this die and use it as a 3 on this area. In this space, you're spending potentially papyrus, depending on which die you take. If you take a 1 or 2, you don't have to spend any papyrus. And what that allows you to do is take 1 card out of, depending on where your guy is actually at. So if he is here, he can only take out of this space because of the color. If he is up there, you can take out of this space if you wish, and further up, further up. More cards will come out as your population grows, or as someone's population grows, so you can see what's available to you. Each of these cards is different, so I'm not going to go into them, other than to say that the white cards are 1 use only. These cards, or the yellow ones, are likely going to have ongoing benefits. So for example, this one, when playing a blessing, you gain 1 gold. That is a blessing, and I'll talk about gaining them at a later stage. If he were to play a 6, You take that, put that onto the side of the thing. It would cost him 3 papyrus. So you need to make sure you got the papyrus here before you actually take the card. Notice this marker, by the way. You can spend a papyrus to take all of the cards out of one of the sections and basically redeal them if you don't like anything in the sections that are available to you. If this is available, this is also available, by the way. So he would spend 3 papyrus to take 3 goods. Because he's in the red, he could take the 3 from here or 3 from there. If you are doing that, you must take all 3 cards from the same section and you must spend the 3 papyrus. So if I don't have 3 papyrus, I cannot take a 5 or 6. Moving on, we'll come to the top part. So up here, when you take a die, it tells you which area you can build a statue in. It's going to cost you depending on which statue. So the first statue will cost you 4 of these granite tokens, and the placement that you will build it in is, if I take the 1, I will build it in that space. If I were to take the 6, however, I would build it in that space. So you're looking for just a matching symbol. On future games, there are cards that you can put down that will change the order of those gods, but I'm just using the basics on the board. What that then enables you to do is, if another player does this action, you, being the purple, will receive 1 of those tokens. And there's a benefit of having your statues all the way around this obelisk. So whenever someone does something, you will get stuff for them doing that thing. If you're playing a 3-player game, you would also receive that statue bonus immediately upon building the statue. If you're playing a 2-player game, you don't get that, but if you or another player does this action, you get that bonus. That's the god statues. There are also 2 areas of public statues. So there's these 2 here and there's 2 around the temple. You can use any number to build on those spots. This cost is the same. Building here, you'll gain the gold, and that will add to the number of buildings you have in each row. And building over at the temple, you would gain 3 points for each of these that is built in line with the statue you build over there. So building over there early is not a really great idea, but if you can get a lineup of a lot of your columns, you'll gain 3 points for each column in that line when you build the statue. Okay, moving forward to this area. On this area, you are spending resource. So depending on which of the cards you take, which is dependent on which die you choose to take. So if I use the 4, I can only take this middle card. If I were to choose the 5, I can only take this card. The background of the card is also important, but let's, for example, say that I use the 5 to take this card. I would need to have 4 of the sandstone resource to spend, which is just there. What I can then do is build that into the temple. I do gain 3 points for taking this one. If I took this one, it would only be worth 1 point. This one's worth 2. The background color is dependent on which section is facing towards this portion. So what that means is we're currently in darkness, so it's actually more beneficial for me to take this one if I'm able to pay for it than it is to take that. Sure, I'll only get 1 point instead of 3, but I would also be able to do what is in the middle of that card. I then build anywhere in this temple. If I build in the corner, I would get 2 points for each matching color. So I can actually turn it that way so that 2 sides match. That will get me 4 more points for building just there. If I were to build it here, I'll get 1 point for the matching color. When you're placing this, you will put a pillar on top of it. You would gain 1 point for each building that is in line. So if there's a building here and here, this would gain another 2 points, plus the 1 for the matching side, which is 3 points. You also gain all the stuff that you've covered. So in this case, that's 3 of these tokens. If he went there, I'd get 2 of the bread. That will then be worth points for later down the line at the end of the scoring. So when you've got your buildings and your pillars, that's worth points as well. But at this point, you will get points for any buildings that are in line with the pillar. Once that's happened, let's, for example, pretend that that came from here. All them move down one, and then a new one comes out. Okay, and then the final section is this one, which has a bread cost. If you're playing a 2-player game, you can only use the inside line. If you're on a 3-player game, you've got the inside line and this spot and this spot. If you're on a 4-player game, then all of the spots are available to you. You're paying the bread to build in the space. So let's, for example, say he took this die. He pays 2 bread to put a building just there. He takes 2 bread from over here. If you don't have the resource, by the way, you can use gold instead of the resource. So he could spend 2 gold because he doesn't have any bread to build a building just there. That building would gain 3 points for being built in the same line as one of his columns. He would also gain 1 of each resource in the line. So if he were to build here, he would gain 1 of them and 1 of each of the other resources. But he wouldn't get the 3 points for being in line with that column. He then advances his population marker 4 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I believe that is everything with Tekhenu. Please go ahead and watch my gameplay to get a feel for how the game actually plays. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you wish to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games that I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.